So today we're going to be learning about characters. Does everyone know what a character is?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you think a character is? We're going to put that right on. Can I volunteer? Okay, Dylan, what's a character?
Someone in a TV show, movie, or a book.
Yeah, exactly. So a person in a story, a novel, or a play, or even a TV show. Okay, so does everyone have a favorite character from a book or a movie? Yeah?
Yes.
What makes them special? Or unique? Lily? Their personalities. Okay. So what are some words to describe their personalities? Julia? Funny. What's another word?
So you wrote this.
Is that you, Madeline? Do you have a favorite character? Yeah? What makes them good or funny or special?
And I truly
How they act. So Madeline brings up a good point, how they act. We're going to go to that in a minute. So what we're describing right now is called a trait. So a trait is a quality that sets one person apart from another person. So it's a characteristic. So for example, they're funny, they're nice, they're generous, they're brave. Can anyone think of a trait?
Active.
Active.
Sad.
Sad. Excellent. So Madeline said how they act. So we know that because it's called evidence. So how they act is evidence. Does anyone know what evidence is?
laminated paper.
Julia?
So
Something.
that it's a little sturdier, so it lasts throughout
A
the year.
story. Or something.
And then I
Something from a story. Well, it is from a story. So evidence is something that supports or proves the truth. So what you have to do with evidence is you have to find it. So if you're looking for why somebody's funny or something, you have to go into the book and find out why they're funny, right? Okay. So if you flip the sheet over in front of you, you don't need a pencil. These are just the vocabulary words from the board, so you have them right next to you. Okay? So, today we're going to read a book called Chicken Sunday. Does everyone see who the author is? Patricia Polacco? Do you remember you read The Big Rotten Red-Headed Brother by her? Okay. Well, Patricia Polacco wrote this story, so she's the narrator, the main character in the story. You won't hear her name mentioned, but that's who's talking, okay? So she's the main character. And you'll see also through the illustrations that Patricia Polacco includes pictures of herself from her own life. So it's really interesting.
You can draw an animal.
So we're going to get started. And I have some copies of books in front of you if you'd like to follow along. You guys can share. So make sure that Dylan and Madeline have some, and then you three can look on. Okay. Let me know when you're ready by looking up at me. Okay. Stuart and Winston were my neighbors. They were my brothers by a solemn ceremony we had performed in their backyard one summer. They weren't the same religion as I was. They were Baptists. Their grandma, Eulalie May Walker, was my grandma now. My babushka had died 2 summers before. Does anyone know what a babushka is? Madeline?
Another word for grace.
Yeah, so it can be Jewish or Russian. It's another word for grandmother. Good. Sometimes my mother let me go to church on Sunday with them. How we loved to hear Miss Eula sing. She had a voice like slow thunder and sweet rain. We'd walk to church and back. She'd take my hand as we crossed College Avenue. Even though we've been churching up like decent folks ought to, she'd say, I don't want you to step in front of one of those too fast cars. You'll be as flat as a hen's tongue. She squeezed my hand. When we passed Mr. Kudinski's hat shop, Miss Eula would always stop and look in the window at the wonderful hats. Then she'd sigh and we'd walk on. We called those Sundays Chicken Sundays because Miss Eula almost always fried chicken for dinner. There'd be collard greens with bacon, a big pot of hoppin' john, corn on the cob, and a spoonful and fried spoon bread. One Sunday at the table, we watched her paper fan flutter back and forth, pulling moist chicken fried air along with it. She took a deep breath. Her skin glowed as she smiled. Then she told us something we already knew. That Easter bonnet in Mr. Kudinski's window is the most beautiful I ever did see, she said thoughtfully. Thoughtfully? What is that? Can anyone think of what the word thoughtfully is? Claire?
It means like.
No, look at the vocab. What is it? Thoughtfully. If she's thoughtful. If someone's thoughtful, what is it? Will you help her out?
A tree.
It's a trait, remember? Trait. Okay. The three of us exchanged looks. We wanted to get her that hat more than anything in the world. Stuart reached into a hole in the trunk of our wish tree in the backyard. He pulled out a rusty Band-Aid tin. The three of us held our breath as we counted the money inside that we had been saving for weeks. If we are going to get that hat for Miss Viola in time for Easter, we are going to need a lot more than this, I announced. Maybe we should ask Mr. Kadinsky if we could sweep up his shop or something to earn the rest of the money, Stuart said. I don't know, Winnie said fearfully. What's fearful?
Open the clips. Open the
A
clips.
tree.
A trait, good. He's such a strange old man. He never smiles at anyone. He always looks so mean. We all agreed that it was worth a try anyway.
Last section.
The next day, we took a shortcut down the alley in the back of the hat shop. Bigger boys were there. They were yelling. Eggs flew past us and pelted
In my
Mr. Kadinsky's back door. Just as the boys ran away, the door flew open. Mr. Kadinsky glared straight at us. You there, he yelled. Why do you kids do things like this? It wasn't us, Stuart tried to say, but Mr. Kadinsky wouldn't listen to us. All I want to do is live my life in peace, and I'm calling your grandmother, he shouted as he wagged his finger in Stuart's face. Miss Eula was waiting in her living room for us. Miss Eula, we didn't throw those eggs, I sobbed. Who's I? Who's I in the story? Dylan.
Stuart.
No. Julia?
Patricia Polacco.
Patricia Polacco. Good. Some big boys did, Stuart sputtered. What were you doing in the back of his hat shop in the first place? She asked. We knew that we couldn't tell her the truth, so we just stood there and cried. She looked at us for a long while. Baby dears, I want to believe you. Heaven knows I brought up you children to always tell the truth. If you say you didn't do it, then I believe you. It's too bad, though, she went on to say. That poor man has suffered so much in his life. He deserves more than eggs thrown at him. You know, he thinks you threw the eggs. You'll have to show him that you are good people. You'll have to change his mind somehow. In my kitchen the next day, we thought and thought. How can we win him over when he thinks we threw those eggs, Stuart asked. He doesn't even like us, Winston chirped. Eggs, I said quietly. Eggs, Stuart asked. Eggs, I screamed. I went to the kitchen drawer and took out a lump of beeswax, a candle, a small funnel with a wooden handle, and some packets of yellow, red, and black dye. Mom helped me show the boys how to decorate eggs in the way Bubby had taught us, the way they had to do it in the old country. We made designs on the eggshell with hot wax, then dyed them, and finally melted the wax patterns off. We put the eggs in a basket, and even though we were afraid, marched into Mr. Kadinsky's shop and put them on the counter. He raised his eyebrows and glowered at us. Then his eyes dropped to the basket. Spasiba, he said softly, which means thank you in Russian. Payinsky eggs. Then he looked closely. I haven't seen those since I left my homeland. We didn't throw those eggs at your door, Mr. Kadinsky, we told him. He looked at us for a minute. Well, then you've got great courage to be here. Chutzpah, you have chutzpah. Then his eyes glistened, and his mouth curled into a warm smile. Come, have some tea with me. We spent the whole afternoon talking together, having poppy seed cake and strong tea. He told us about his life, we told him about ours. When we finally got the courage to ask about doing the odd jobs to earn some extra money, he apologized and told us there was no work. We didn't tell him what we wanted to do with the money, or what we wanted the money for. It didn't seem like the right thing to do. Our hearts sank. I tell you this, he said thoughtfully. There it is again, thoughtfully. These eggs are as beautiful as my hats. Stuart, Winnie, and I looked at each other. It's almost Easter, he went on to say. I'm sure that people would love these eggs. Set up a table and sell them right here in my shop. For the next few days, we worked very hard. We made almost a dozen Payinsky eggs. Payinsky is Russian, by the way. When people came in, they picked them up and said things like beautiful, splendid, intricate, glorious. We sold them all in one single day. That afternoon, when all the eggs were gone, we counted our money. We had more than enough for the hat. Just as we were about to tell Mr. Kadinsky that we wanted to buy the hat, came out from the back room holding a beautiful hat box, gift wrapped. Keep your money, children, he said softly. I have seen Miss Eula admire this. It is for her, isn't it? Tell her that I know you are very good children, such good children. When Easter Sunday arrived, we thought our hearts would burst when we watched Miss Eula open the hat box. She held us close as big tears rolled down her cheeks. Our hearts sang along with the choir that Sunday. She looked so beautiful in that hat. When it was time for her solo, we knew that she was singing just for us. Her voice was like slow thunder and sweet rain. Later that day, Miss Eula sat at the head of the table. She said, "Oh, baby dears, I can die happy now. And after I'm done on chicken Sundays, I want you to boil up some chicken, bones, gravy, and all, and pour it over my grave. So late at night, when I'm hungry, I can reach out and have me some." Then she rolled her head back and laughed from a deep, holy place inside. Winston, Stewart, and I are grown up now. Our old neighborhood has changed some, yet it's still familiar too. Our freeway rumbles over the spot where Mr. Kudinski's shop once stood. I think of him often in his glorious hats. We've lost Miss Eula some time back, but every year we take some chicken soup up to Mountain View Cemetery and do just as she asked. Sometimes, when we are especially quiet inside, we can hear her singing, a voice that sounds like slow thunder and sweet rain. Okay, so you guys can use this book to refer back to. What we're going to do today, and I'm going to have everyone take a copy. So these are a list of different character traits. Okay, we're going to be using them for the exercise. For the next 3 days, we're going to be focusing on character traits and characters, okay? And how we can prove their traits with evidence. So today we're going to do what's called a character web. So I'm going to have you all pass these out. Here's one for you. I don't want you to rate anything on them yet. Okay, so what we have here is the character traits list. So it says, what is my character like as a person? Well, we have nice traits, mean traits, sad traits, positive traits, negative traits, does a lot of traits, does very little type of traits, confident traits, and nervous traits. So, for example, another word for nice is, you can say bright or cheerful. So it's just the opposite, but it means the same, or not the opposite, it means the same thing. So it's a synonym. So those are the character traits. And now together, this is the next yours. Yours. This is yours. Okay. All right. Now, okay. So we're going to do one together. So I chose Winston. Okay. So what I'm going to do, and everyone can do this too, label it Chicken Sunday for the title. And we'll do 2 traits and 2 evidence for example, and then you guys can do one on your own, okay? So I'm going to put my character's name, Winston, in the center. But I'm actually going to have you pick out of a bag which character you'll do today, okay? Just to make it a little bit more fun. Kind of like a game. So the character trait for Winston that I said was that he is fearful. So I put the word fearful right here. And how I know he's fearful is on page 6. If you want to open the book, you can see. So I'm going to put page 6. See how I labeled it page 6? I said,
We don't have page numbers.
oh, you know what? I just counted. You're right, they don't have page numbers. Just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I should have mentioned that. Thank you. Are you there? Okay, so right down here, I put page 6, and I put Winston is fearful and bow, and then I would continue on to say, asking Mr. Kudinski to sweep his shop in exchange for a hat. So that's how I know he's fearful. And what's that called? How you know something? How you know that trait? Lily? Evidence, right? Okay, so Can you give me an example of a trait, Dylan? For Winston?
For a trait?
Yes.
Which one?
Winston. So the character Winston, what is he like? What?
He is like fearful because he at page 6 he said something, but I know that he like screamed it sort of.
Yep, so that's great evidence. We did fearful. So what's another trait that he is? Julia? He's brave. Why is he brave? I love that word.
Because he tried something
That might be dangerous. Okay, well, what else did he do? Madeline, do you know what else he did? That was a brave act. What did he do? What did he do for Miss Eula that he was so brave to do for Miss Eula? Julia?
he looked at the shop.
Yes, he worked at the shop, and what else? What most important? He told Mr. Kadinsky that he didn't throw the eggs. And what did he do for Mr. Kadinsky? He did. Remember what he gave him?
The eggs.
The eggs. So that's why he's brave. So do you think we can handle this? Doing our own characters? Okay. We're going to work independently on this, and then we'll share at the end, okay? So close your eyes and pick one out. Okay, so you'll notice that you guys either have Miss Eula, Mr. Kadinsky, or Patricia. Some of you might have the same. We're going to keep Stuart and Winston out of it just because these other three main characters have a lot more character traits to talk about. So, you guys can go ahead and get started. So fill your character's name right in the character bubble.
Do you want to use the professor's?
Absolutely. Here's another book. You can use my copy. I love that you asked that, because how else were we going to tell the evidence, right? And you guys, you don't have to label it by page number like how Miss Schreiber did. You can just write in on the evidence. You can just write in what you think is the evidence. You don't have to find the page number. That's okay. Does everybody have a pencil?
I shouldn't hear your clips if you don't know where to put them.
And also, you guys can go back to your character traits list. So if you're thinking that you can't really think of one, there's some great words that you can use here.
And look at the smartboard.
We only have a little bit of time, so we want to get going.
And I'm filling up the book club. It'll come up in a minute.
Sometimes it's easier too if you write the words for the traits and then go back and find the evidence just for time. And if you guys need some more room, you can come spread out over here.
Not today.
Let's see. Character traits. So what are some words? So you look at the first name,
And then the last name is Cole.
so you have Miss Eula. So do you think Miss Eula is nice?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the traits under nice that Miss Eula could be? She's bright.
She's caring.
She's very caring. So why don't you tell me like the word caring? Why don't you tell me why she's caring or how she's caring?
Of the fiction section. So this goes after the set. Look it over the page.
I'm liking the traits that I see. Does anyone have